Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The most high-profile fight of the weekend in the heavyweight division now has a new main event. So Michael Polite-Coffie had been due to face Gerald Washington, but the former title challenger Washington is out with COVID-19. As outlined in this press release, and here's a graphic as well that says Washington is out with COVID, but the late replacement opponent is going to be Jonnie Rice. So that's actually not a bad late notice opponent. Sometimes it ends up being filled by guys that you just think, it's not going to be competitive. He's going to get nothing out of this. But actually, Jonnie Rice is a very good yardstick and has been for a number of prospects in recent years, having fought Aslanbek Makhmudov, Tony Yoka, Dempsey McKean, taking them all rounds, going the distance in a 6-rounder with Yoka, getting stopped in the final round against Dempsey McKean, and getting stopped in 7 rounds against Aslanbek Makhmudov. But in those fights, he was able to give them something to think about, give them rounds where it was meaningful, a different style. And I think that's what we're going to see here. And against F.A. Ajagba, Jonnie Rice, he also went the distance there. And it was a case that F.A. Ajagba just didn't look that fantastic because Rice was slippery, he was awkward, and at times he was having success landing the right hand. He was boxing on the move and getting some rounds there, but he just wasn't throwing enough in key rounds to, and I think to some degree, he was wary of the power, and maybe it was self-belief as well, but he was in that fight, but F.A. Ajagba ended up winning it on points. So if he has made a few adjustments and, he says he was going to after that fight, this could be even more competitive than we think. Michael Polite-Coffie is a big guy, 6'5", 12-0 at the moment. Coming off a career best win against Damani Rock, that was a beautiful uppercut, which absolutely almost decapitated Rock. And he's been looking increasingly good. But as someone said to me on Twitter, this is sort of a step between where Michael Polite-Coffie has been facing and Gerald Washington. Because I think what was going to happen with the Washington fight, and let's face it, Washington is a fading force. I think he's on the decline, approaching 40. He doesn't move his head. So he was going to get stopped at some point with a vicious stoppage, probably also an uppercut or a hook or something like that. Jonnie Rice is a more slippery operator in terms of he does actually have good skills, good fundamentals. He can box well, he can move well, but sometimes he just doesn't throw enough punches. And he will need to be more than just safety first to get a decision here and survive against Michael Polite-Coffie. Coffie is a very aggressive fighter. He'll be coming forward, looking for Jonnie Rice, trying to land his power shots. But I think Rice will actually probably go, this fight, it's a very different fight to the Washington fight, and it's an interesting test for Coffie because of the style, the movement, and the slippery and awkwardness that Jonnie Rice can bring. So, he's going to need to cut off the ring, break down his man if he wants to get the stoppage here, because Jonnie Rice is a guy who can survive. And if he does get hurt, he does have the ability, to move on the back foot and be able to survive. Michael Polite-Coffie certainly goes in the favourite here, but it's a very different fight to the one that the Washington fight would have been. And I don't mind it as a late notice opponent. And Coffie clearly going in the favourite here. Jonnie Rice has had it pretty tough in terms of some of the opponents that he's fought. As I sort of mentioned, he's fought, basically a who's who of some of the upcoming prospects in the heavyweight division in recent years. So he's going to be a more than able test for Michael Polite-Coffie. And this is a 10-rounder. So I'm sort of, caught between, is this going to go the distance here? I mean, Michael Polite-Coffie has been on a roll, stopping a lot of his more recent opponents. He's got a 75% knockout ratio. Some of the decisions that he has came earlier in, the sort of the 12 fights on his ledger. But, impressive knockouts recently against Damani Rock. He also stopped Joey Abel, had a very fun fight against Luis Eduardo Pena. So, yeah, I mean, I'm betwixt and between about how this one will end if this is going to go the distance, but it's certainly going to go rounds. But if it does go the distance, then the onus is going to be on Jonathan Rice if he's just, to be more than just a guy showing up being an opponent. He's got to throw enough punches to try, be in this fight and get a decision. And with his boxing skills, he does have the ability, I think, to outbox Michael Polite-Coffie. And I know some people say, oh, well, Coffee, should knock this guy out, should stop him. But people underrate Jonathan Rice's skills. And this is why he's been able to last in fights and give some guys some good rounds. So if he can throw enough punches, then he is certainly in this fight if it goes to the cards. But ultimately, it's up to him to try to throw enough punches to win rounds. But with that comes risk, and Michael Polite-Coffie, a good counter puncher. He's got a good jab, and certainly we know the uppercut is lethal, and good hooks as well. He dropped Luis Eduardo Pena with multiple left hooks. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it's probably more competitive than some people will give it credit for, but it's a good style test for Michael Polite-Coffie. I mean, a lot of the guys that he's been facing haven't been movers, haven't been able to sort of do much in there with him. He was, I think people were expecting a tougher fight with Damani Rock, who certainly has very good skills, but ultimately just got caught up with a shot that basically ended the night. I mean, that could happen in this one too. But I do expect it is going to go rounds. How about you? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.